Imagine waking up tomorrow, the alarm blaring in the dark before dawn, stumbling out of bed with that familiar grogginess, making your way to the bathroom, flipping on the harsh fluorescent light that casts unflattering shadows, and looking in the mirror, really looking in, realizing the man staring back at you, the one with the tired eyes that seem more sunken than yesterday, the lines etched deeper from years of stress and unspoken worries, has spent years, maybe even decades upon decades, chasing something elusive that never quite arrives. More money to fill the bank account and chase away the financial fears, more status to impress the neighbors and colleagues who barely know the real you, more approval from bosses and peers who offer it conditionally only to feel emptier than ever. Like a hollow shell going through the motions of a life that feels increasingly scripted and unfulfilling. What if the entire ladder you've been climbing with such determination, the one everyone from your parents during childhood dinners, to your teachers in school assemblies, to the motivational posters in corporate offices told you leads straight to freedom, security, and fulfillment, is actually leaning against the wrong wall entirely. And deep down, in those quiet moments you push away during busy days, you've known it for a long time, felt that nagging doubt creeping in like a shadow you can't quite shake. If that thought makes your stomach drop like a stone in a deep well, stirring up memories of sleepless nights tossing and turning, unfulfilled promises from years past, and that persistent sense of something missing, stay right here with me till the very end, because this could be the pivotal, life-altering moment you finally stop running someone else's race. The one designed to keep you perpetually striving without rest, and start living the life that's been waiting inside you all along. Buried under layers of societal expectations, self-imposed obligations, and cultural pressures, I've woven in raw, unflinching truths that cut straight to the core of your experiences. Quiet plot twists that hit harder than any overhyped motivational speech ever could, by revealing hidden realities. And timeless wisdom from Alan Watts that will keep you locked in, questioning everything you've sacrificed, your health that's suffered, your relationships that have strained, your joy that's faded on, maybe, just maybe, ready to walk away from the exhausting performance before it costs you another decade of your precious, irreplaceable life, or even more. Have you ever seen a man who seemed to have it all? The corner office with the stunning view, the luxury car parked in the reserved spot, the social media feeds full of envy-inducing highlights, vacations, and accomplishments. Walk away from it without a backward glance or a word of explanation. Not because he was exhausted and burned out to the point of complete physical and mental collapse. Not because he failed spectacularly in some public embarrassment that made headlines or gossip circles. But because one ordinary day, perhaps, over a simple cup of coffee in his kitchen, or during a solitary walk in a nearby park, he looked at his life, the constant praise from colleagues who always wanted something from him. In return, the promotions that came with more chains of responsibility than rewards of freedom. The late nights in the office staring at screens until his vision blurred and his head throbbed. The perfect suits that felt like a restrictive costume rather than clothing. The polite smiles that never reached his eyes or touched his soul, and saw straight through the whole elaborate, carefully constructed performance. He saw it clearly for what it was. An endless draining act that demanded constant energy, a carefully scripted role he had been playing so long, day after day, year after year, that he almost forgot it wasn't real, that it wasn't who he truly was, at his core, beneath all the layers. And once you see it like that, once the veil lifts even a little and the illusion starts to crack, you can't unsee it, no matter how hard you try, or how much you wish you could. The cracks become too obvious. The facade too fragile to hold together anymore. Alan Watts called it the illusion of winning, the seductive, insidious lie that whispers in your ear and tells you if you just keep going a little longer through the fatigue, just reach the next level on that seemingly endless corporate or social ladder, just achieve one more thing to add to your ever-growing resume or list of accomplishments, one day you'll finally feel whole, complete, at peace with yourself and the world around you. But what if that wholeness never actually arrives? No matter how high you climb or how many boxes you check. What if the finish line keeps moving farther away every time you get close, teasing you with glimpses of satisfaction, but never letting you fully cross into contentment? What if you've spent decades climbing higher and higher, sacrificing sleep that leaves you perpetually tired, relationships that suffer from your absence, and simple joys that fade into memory, only to realize at the top that the ladder was propped against the wrong wall all along, leading not to freedom or lasting happiness, but to a dead end of more emptiness and regret? Most people never ask those questions, or if they do, in fleeting moments, they bury them deep under the daily grind of routines and distractions. They're too busy chasing the next goal on the endless list that never shortens, competing with everyone around them in unspoken rivalries that drain their energy, comparing their progress to filtered highlights on social media that paint unrealistic pictures, complying with expectations that never seem to end or satisfy, no matter how much you give. But every now and then, in the midst of this chaotic rush of modern life, there's a man who dares to stop in the middle of it all, to hit the pause button. A man who pauses in a world that worships constant momentum, endless motion, and perpetual productivity, as if stillness were a sign of weakness. And in that single, quiet pause, away from the noise of notifications buzzing, emails piling up, and demands pulling from every direction, he sees everything clearly for the first time. Like a thick fog lifting to reveal the true landscape beneath. He sees the game he's been playing without realizing the rules were stacked against his true self. He sees the mask he's been wearing so perfectly, it fused to his face, hiding his authentic expressions. He sees the enormous price he's paid for applause that's fleeting and superficial, approval that's conditional and often manipulative, and the illusion of security that's as fragile as glass in a storm. And then, without drama or apology, without fanfare or explanations to the confused onlookers who don't understand, he simply walks away. Not in shame that weighs him down like an anchor, not in defeat that crushes his spirit into dust, but in something far more terrifying to the system he leaves behind: absolute, unshakable clarity that sets him free from the invisible chains. Because when a man no longer believes in the game, when he sees through its shiny promises and hollow rewards, he becomes completely immune to its temptations and manipulations. He becomes unreachable to the carrots dangled in front of him, unbribable by the incentives that once motivated him, untouchable by the pressures that once controlled his every decision and action. You've seen this man before, even if you didn't recognize what you were looking at in the moment, or understand the profundity of his choice. Maybe you passed him on a quiet trail at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday while you were rushing between meetings, heart pounding from caffeine and deadlines, mind racing with to-do lists and worries. He looked calm, steady, present, like someone who had nothing left to prove to anyone and nowhere urgent to be, except right here, in this moment, fully alive and engaged with the world around him. Maybe he was your old colleague, the one who used to grind harder than anyone else in the team, always first in and last out of the office, until one ordinary day he didn't show up anymore. His desk cleared without notice or ceremony. He deleted his LinkedIn profile that once boasted hundreds of connections and endorsements. He stopped replying to those big opportunity emails that used to light him up with ambition and excitement. He vanished from the professional world that once consumed his every waking hour. But he didn't disappear into nothing or oblivion, into isolation or despair. He vanished into himself, into a quieter life he never even knew he was allowed to live. One without the constant pressure to perform, achieve, and impress. And maybe, deep down, some hidden part of you envied him in that instant. Felt a pull toward that peace that seemed so foreign yet familiar. Because you still remember what it's like to slow down and breathe deeply. You remember what it's like to feel the wind on your face without immediately thinking about deadlines or emails piling up in your inbox. To laugh freely without checking your calendar first or worrying about how it looks to others. To wake up in the morning without that familiar knot of dread in your stomach, without the weight of the day ahead pressing down like a heavy burden. You remember, but it feels like another lifetime ago, like a version of you that once had the audacity to want more than just achievement and accolades that fade. More than just the next rung on the ladder that's never high enough to satisfy, more than just the approval of people who will forget you the moment you stop producing or performing for them, the moment you no longer fit their narrative. We're constantly told that success is the ultimate goal, the holy grail worth any cost, the thing that defines a life well lived. That you should sacrifice your peace today for freedom tomorrow that never materializes. That hustle is a virtue to be celebrated and emulated. That burnout is just proof that you care deeply and are committed to excellence. That exhaustion is the price of greatness and a lasting legacy. But what if none of that is actually true? What if it's all a carefully crafted narrative designed to keep you in line? What if the world has been selling you a version of success that was never designed to make you free or fulfilled only to make you endlessly productive? A reliable cog in a machine that benefits others more than you. What if the life you're building so carefully, brick by brick with meticulous planning, is silently breaking you, not in ways anyone can see from the outside like dramatic collapses or public breakdowns, but in ways only you can feel in the quiet private corners of your own heart, in the loneliness that lingers even in crowded rooms full of acquaintances, in the restlessness that no vacation can cure? The man who walked away felt it too, the same persistent ache that won't subside. The same hollow emptiness that echoes in the silence. The slow, creeping realization that the more he won by society's standards and metrics, the less he actually felt alive and connected to anything meaningful. That the higher he climbed the corporate or social ladder, the more disconnected he became from himself, from his true desires and passions, from the people who mattered most in his life, like family and close friends. That the closer he got to what everyone called success, the bigger house with more rooms than he needed, the fancier title that came with more stress, the further he drifted from the man he once dreamed of becoming when he was young and full of possibility, unburdened by expectations. So he did the unthinkable in a world that never stops moving or demanding more. He stepped off the treadmill that kept speeding up relentlessly. He walked off the battlefield where victories felt hollow and pyrrhic. He dared to ask the question almost no one wants to face head-on or articulate. What if I already had enough and I just never allowed myself to know it, to embrace it, to live from that place of sufficiency? You see, the world doesn't fear the man who fails publicly or crashes hard in a spectacle. It fears the man who stops playing the game entirely, because he can no longer be used or manipulated for its ends. He can't be baited with praise that once hooked him like a fish. He can't be guilted with expectations that once bound him like ropes. He's no longer running toward approval from others who judge superficially or running away from feelings of inadequacy that were planted early. He's centered in his own truth and values. He's whole without needing external validation or props. Not because he has everything material the world offers, but because he no longer needs everything to feel complete and worthy of existence. That's the man who becomes truly untouchable in the deepest, most profound sense. Not louder in his declarations or protests. Not richer in his bank account or possessions. Not more impressive to the outside world with his achievements or accolades. Just free in a way that's terrifying to a society addicted to constant validation, endless striving, and perpetual comparison that leaves everyone feeling insufficient. You didn't get here overnight, to this point of quiet doubt that simmers beneath the surface. You've spent 20, maybe 25 years, perhaps even longer depending on your path, playing the game exactly as instructed from school to career to adulthood. You climbed the ladder, step by painstaking step, each one requiring more effort. You followed the blueprint they handed you without question or deviation. You built the perfect resume full of accomplishments and experiences. You cultivated the impressive network of contacts and connections. You earned the solid reputation that opens doors but also creates pressure. You bought the house with a white picket fence and mortgage. You wore the right clothes to fit the part and blend in. You said the right things in meetings and conversations. You read the right books on success and self-improvement. You shook the right hands at events and gatherings. You constructed the image carefully, piece by meticulously curated piece, layer by layer. And somewhere along the way, without even noticing the gradual shift, you disappeared into the role you created. Not all at once in a dramatic crisis that everyone sees and comments on, but quietly, subtly. One small compromise at a time, one yes when you meant no. One extra hour when you needed rest in the name of ambition that promised glory and rewards. In the name of providing for your loved ones with stability. In the name of proving you were someone worth respecting and admiring in the eyes of society. But beneath the titles that define your professional identity, beneath the goals that drive your daily actions, beneath the carefully curated life that looks perfect on paper and in photos, something kept whispering in the back of your mind. Persistent and unrelenting. Is this it? Is this really all there is to existence? To being human? You ignored it at first, dismissed it as fleeting doubt. You called it weakness, to be overcome with more effort. You called it fatigue from the hustle that everyone experiences. You told yourself everyone feels this way sometimes, that it's just a rough patch you'll push through with grit, a temporary phase, that it's part of the climb everyone has to endure to reach the top where things get better. But the whisper didn't fade away into silence. It got louder in the silences between meetings, when your mind wanders in the stillness before sleep, when your thoughts race, unchecked in the reflection staring back at you in the mirror every morning as you prepare for another day of the same routine. Because while the world clapped for your grind and called you successful with admiration and envy, you were quietly falling apart inside, piece by piece, layer by layer, and almost no one noticed or cared because it didn't show on the surface. Exhaustion looks noble on a man who's achieving great things. Burnout gets you admiration from the outside as a sign of dedication and passion. Self-neglect is celebrated as long as the numbers look good. Revenue targets hit consistently. Followers gained steadily. Titles earned progressively. Square footage expanded impressively. And if you dare to stop, to question the path you've been on, to step back even briefly for reflection, you're suddenly labeled ungrateful for your opportunities and blessings, soft for not pushing harder through discomfort, broken for needing rest or change, unmotivated for seeking deeper meaning beyond material success. Because a man who questions success, who pauses to evaluate, threatens the entire system that runs on his silence, his compliance, his unending effort without complaint. But here's the truth: most men will never say out loud, the one that lingers unspoken in quiet conversations or internal monologues. You gave it everything you had, all your resources, your time that slips away forever and can't be reclaimed, your body that's now aching from years of neglect, your weekends that could have been joyful and restorative, your relationships that suffered from your absence and divided attention, your presence with your children that can't be redeemed, your peace of mind that's fractured and scattered. And in return, you got something that doesn't feel like it was ever really yours to own or enjoy. A title on a business card that's easily replaced by the next ambitious climber. A salary that keeps rising but never quite satisfies the growing void inside. A position in someone else's structure that could vanish tomorrow with a restructure. But not joy that lasts beyond moments. Not deep fulfillment that sustains through challenges. Not real connection that nourishes the soul. Just noise that distracts from the emptiness. Just motion that exhausts the spirit. Just a life so full of activity and busyness, it is suffocating the essence of who you are at your deepest level. They called you a provider with pride and respect. They said you were driven and ambitious with admiration. They said you were inspiring to watch and emulate. But they didn't have to live inside your mind with the constant doubts and questions. They didn't feel what it cost you to be the man they admired from afar, the toll it took on your well-being. They didn't notice how your genuine laughter slowly disappeared over the years, replaced by polite nods and practiced responses that ring hollow and inauthentic. And here's the part that stings the deepest. The twist that hurts like a knife. You got exactly what you were told to want, what society promised as the pinnacle. You won the game by all the visible metrics and rules set forth. And you still feel empty inside, unfulfilled and restless. Because maybe what you were chasing was never meant to be caught or held permanently. Maybe the ladder was real and solid, but the prize at the top was always going to be an illusion, a mirage that dissolves upon arrival. Alan Watts said it best, with that piercing clarity that cuts through illusions: we are all just trying to get somewhere. But no one really knows where that somewhere is, or what it truly looks like when you arrive. So we keep going relentlessly, driven by habit. We keep moving at breakneck speed, propelled by momentum. We keep achieving milestone after milestone, checking boxes, hoping that if we just reach the next level, the next milestone on the horizon, that's always shifting, the next raise that promises security and ease, the next house that's bigger and more impressive, the feeling will finally change, the emptiness will fill with something lasting. But what if it doesn't? No matter what heights you attain. What if more is never enough? Because more was never the point in the first place. Never the solution. What if you're not lost at all, but trapped in a self-perpetuating cycle? Not by failure that's obvious and fixable, but by everything that looks exactly like success from the outside. The insidious trap of achievement that promises everything but delivers little. This is the quiet crisis of the modern man. The one no one discusses openly in boardrooms or at family gatherings. Not poverty that demands immediate attention and aid. Not war that rallies cries for peace. Not chaos that forces change and adaptation. But a slow, insidious spiritual starvation, disguised as achievement and progress, as the American dream realized. And no one talks about it openly, because to admit it feels like betrayal of the years invested in the pursuit with dedication, of the sacrifices made along the way with resolve, of the image carefully built and maintained with effort. You worked too hard to question it now, too diligently to doubt. You sacrificed too much to turn back now, too profoundly to pivot. You burned too many bridges to start over now, too completely to rebuild. So you stay in the game, committed. You smile through the fatigue that builds. You show up despite the doubt that grows. But inside, you know the truth in your bones. You know something's wrong at the foundation of it all. You know something vital is missing from the equation of your life. And in those private moments when no one's watching, when the world is quiet and dark, you wonder, what would happen if I just stopped the madness that's consuming me? Not because I failed miserably in the eyes of others. Not because I gave up weakly under pressure, but because I'm finally ready to live for real this time, authentically, on my own terms, without apology.